morning sun shone through the giant windows of the Galactic University on Kepler 442b. Professor Velthera walked into her classroom with confident steps. Her blue skin sparkled like crystal in the light. She had taught xenobiology for 30 years and knew more about dangerous creatures than anyone else in the galaxy. The lecture hall was huge. 500 students from different worlds sat in curved rows. Some had 4 arms, others had tentacles instead of legs. A few looked almost human but had scales or feathers. All of them waited quietly for the lesson to begin. Near the front, 3 friends sat together. Hyunwoo was tall and thin with pale green skin. He came from the Harmony worlds where everyone lived in peace. Next to him sat Da-un, who had silver hair and large purple eyes. She could feel what others were thinking and feeling. Ki-jun sat on the other side, his fingers always moving over his tablet computer. He loved to build machines and study how things worked. Professor Velthera touched a button on her desk. The lights went down and a huge hologram appeared above the students. It showed a planet covered in blue water and green land. White clouds moved slowly across its surface. "Today we study the most dangerous world in known space," she said. Her voice was clear and strong. "This is Sol 3, also called Earth. It is what we call a death world." The hologram changed to show terrible creatures. A massive shark with rows of sharp teeth swam through dark water. Its black eyes looked cold and hungry. Many students moved back in their seats. "Look at this monster," Professor Velthera said, pointing at the shark. "It can grow to be 20 feet long. Its bite can cut a spaceship in half. These creatures have killed for millions of years without changing. They are perfect hunters." The image changed again. Now it showed a huge bear, standing on its back legs. The bear was taller than 3 students standing on each other's shoulders. Its claws were as long as knives. "This is called a polar bear," the professor continued. "It lives in the frozen parts of Earth. It can smell food from 20 miles away. Its fur is so thick that laser weapons cannot hurt it. One hit from its paw can crush metal." Hyunwoo felt sick looking at the images. On his homeworld, the most dangerous animal was a small bird that sang too loudly in the morning. He could not imagine living on a planet with such monsters. The hologram showed more creatures. A snake as thick as a tree trunk with poison that could kill 100 people. A crocodile that could stay underwater for an hour waiting to attack. Spiders bigger than dinner plates with fangs that dripped with deadly poison. "How does anything survive on this world?" asked a student with orange fur and 6 eyes. Professor Velthera smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "Most things do not survive. Earth kills almost everything that lives on it. The weather changes from burning hot to freezing cold. The ground shakes and splits open. Fire falls from the sky. The oceans have storms that can destroy entire cities." Da-yoon used her mind powers to feel what her classmates were thinking. Everyone was scared. Some were having nightmares about the monsters they were seeing. She felt their fear like a cold wind in her mind. "But Professor," said Ki-jun, raising his hand, "are there any smart creatures on this world? Any that build things like we do?" The professor's expression became even more serious. The hologram changed to show what looked like a person, but the image was fuzzy and unclear. "There are stories," she said slowly, "about creatures called humans. They walk on 2 legs like many of us. They have no fur, no scales, no natural weapons. But if they are real, they would be the most dangerous things on Earth." "Why?" asked several students at the same time. "Because they would be Deathworld monsters that can think," Professor Velthera explained. "Imagine a creature that grew up fighting sharks and bears and poisonous snakes every day. Now imagine that creature can build weapons and spaceships. It would be unstoppable." The classroom became very quiet. Even the air recycling system seemed to make less noise. "Luckily," the professor continued, "no one has seen these humans for many years. They probably died out long ago. The death world finally won." Hyunwoo looked at his friends. Da-un's face was pale with worry. Ki-jun was typing notes very fast on his tablet, but his hands were shaking. "Are there other death worlds?" asked a student with metal skin. "A few," Professor Velthera said. "But Earth is the worst. That is why it is forbidden. No civilized person would ever go there. The Galactic Council has made it illegal to even fly near Earth. It is too dangerous. The hologram showed Earth one more time, spinning slowly in space. It looked beautiful from far away, but now everyone knew what lived on its surface. Your homework is to write about why Deathworlds are dangerous, the professor said. Class is finished. Students began to leave, talking quietly to each other about the scary things they had seen. Hyunwoo, Da-Yoon, and Ki-Jun walked out together. I'm glad we live in the safe part of the galaxy, Da-Eun said. I wonder what happened to those humans, Ki-Jun said. If they were real. Hyunwoo looked back at the classroom. Maybe it is better that we will never know. Outside the university, 3 small spaceships landed at the visitor dock. The ships were not like the smooth, quiet vessels that most people used. These ships looked strong and tough, like they were built to survive anything. No one noticed them arrive. Inside the ships, 3 figures were getting ready to leave. They had been traveling for many months to reach this university. They had heard that this was the best place in the galaxy to learn about different worlds and creatures. They were very excited to start their education, especially the class about Earth animals. After all, they had grown up with those animals their whole lives. 2 hours after Professor Velthara's scary lesson, Hyunwoo, Da-Eun, and Ki-Jun walked through the university's main hall. They were still talking about the terrible creatures they had seen. I cannot stop thinking about that shark, Da-Eun said. She touched her head like it hurt. When I felt everyone's fear in the classroom, it was like being in a nightmare. The polar bear was the worst for me, Hyunwoo said. How can something so big move so fast? And those claws? Ki-Jun looked at his tablet. I have been reading about Earth. The information is very limited. Most of it just says dangerous, stay away over and over. They walked past the registration desk where new students signed up for classes. The area was busy with aliens from many different worlds. Some were tall and thin, others were short and round. A few had wings, and one group had tentacles instead of arms. Suddenly, Ki-Jun stopped walking. His tablet was making a beeping sound that meant it had found something unusual. That is strange, he said, looking at his screen. My scanner is picking up energy readings I have never seen before. What kind of energy? Hyunwoo asked. I do not know. It is like a computer and a living thing mixed together. But that should be impossible. Da-Eun looked around the room. Her mind powers let her feel the emotions of everyone nearby. Most people felt normal, happy, nervous, excited about starting school. But there was something else, something different. There are 3 beings here who feel very calm, she said quietly. Too calm, like they are used to danger. The 3 friends looked toward the registration desk. At the front of the line stood 3 figures who looked almost human, but not quite. They were taller than most species, with smooth skin and hair on their heads. One was a male with kind eyes and an easy smile. Another was a female with alert, careful eyes that seemed to notice everything. The third was a larger male with marks on his skin that looked like old wounds. The kind-looking male was talking to the registration clerk, a nervous alien with many eyes and thin arms. We are here for the cultural exchange program, the male said. His voice was friendly and calm. We are from Earth in the Sol system. Hyunwoo felt his blood turn cold. Da-Eun grabbed his arm. Ki-Jun almost dropped his tablet. The registration clerk's many eyes grew very wide. Her thin fingers shook as she looked through her computer files. I do not have Earth listed as an approved world for student exchange, she said. Her voice was getting higher and more scared. Could you check the name again? It might be listed as Sol 3, the female said helpfully. Or Terra. Some people call our world by different names. The clerk typed on her computer. Her breathing became very fast. But that world is classified as restricted. It is a death world. No thinking beings could possibly live there and survive. The larger male laughed, but it was not a mean laugh. It was warm and friendly. Oh, we definitely think, he said. And we are very much alive. We are really excited to be here, especially to learn about our local animals. We heard Professor Velthera knows a lot about Earth creatures. The three friends moved closer, trying to hear better. Other students were starting to notice something was happening. A crowd was forming around the registration desk. "You are saying," the clerk said slowly, "that you actually live on the Deathworld? With the sharks and the bears and the poisonous snakes?" "Well, we do not live with them exactly," the kind male said. "We live on the same planet. Most of the time we try to give each other space. Although," the female added, "some humans work with those animals. My cousin studies sharks. He swims with them almost every day." The registration area became very quiet. Everyone was staring at the three beings from Earth. "Swims with sharks?" the clerk whispered. "Sure," the large male said. "Sharks are actually pretty safe if you know what you are doing. I used to study ocean life before I became a teacher. Spent lots of time underwater with all kinds of sea creatures." Kijun's tablet was beeping louder now. The energy readings were getting stronger. "Yunwoo," he whispered, "these readings are incredible. Whatever these beings are, they are not like anything in my database." Da-Yun was trying to read their emotions, but it was difficult. They feel calm, confident, not afraid of anything, but also kind. They really do want to learn and make friends. "My name is Minho," the kind male said to the clerk. "This is So Young and Jae-min. We brought all our paperwork from Earth's education department. We really hope we can study here." The clerk looked at her computer screen again. Her hands were shaking so much she could barely type. I need to call my supervisor, and maybe security, and possibly the dean of students. This is very unusual." "We understand," So Young said with a smile. "We know Earth has a bad reputation, but we promise we are here to learn, not to cause trouble." More students were gathering now. Word was spreading through the university that beings from the famous Deathworld had arrived. Some students were scared and staying far away. Others were curious and trying to get closer. Hyunwoo felt brave enough to step forward. "Excuse me," he said politely. "I am Hyunwoo. We just learned about your world in Professor Velthara's class." Minho turned and smiled at him. "Nice to meet you, Hyunwoo. What did you learn about Earth?" "We learned about the terrible monsters that live there," Hyunwoo said. "The sharks and bears and poisonous creatures. The professor said your world tries to kill everything that lives on it." Jaemin nodded thoughtfully. "Well, Earth can be challenging," he admitted. "But it is also very beautiful. And most of the animals are not really monsters. They are just trying to live their lives, same as us. But the professor said humans might exist, and if they did, they would be the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy," Da-Un said, stepping forward. The three humans looked at each other and laughed. "I guess that depends on what you mean by dangerous," So Young said. "We prefer to think of ourselves as adaptable." The supervisor arrived with 3 security guards. The security guards had their hands on their weapons, but they looked confused. The humans did not look like the savage monsters they had been expecting. "I am going to need to see some identification," the supervisor said nervously. "Of course," Minho said, pulling out a small device. "Here are our passports, educational records, and health certificates. We also have a letter from the Earth government asking for cultural exchange." The supervisor looked at the documents on his scanner. His expression changed from fear to confusion to amazement. These are real," he said quietly. "You really are from Earth, and your planet really does have a government and schools and civilization. We have been spacefaring for about 300 years now," Jae-min explained. "We started with trips to our moon, then to other planets. In our system, this is our first visit to another star system. We are very excited to be here." Kijun could not help himself. "But how did you survive the Deathworld? How did you build spaceships when you had to fight monsters every day?" Minho thought about this question seriously. "I think maybe your information about Earth is not quite complete," he said. "Yes, we have dangerous animals, but we also have beautiful forests and peaceful rivers and friendly animals too, and humans learn to live with all of it. The supervisor was still staring at his scanner. According to this, you have universities on Earth and cities and art and music and literature. Oh yes, So Young said proudly. We would love to share some of our culture with you. We brought some Earth music and art as gifts. And we are very eager to learn about your cultures too, Jamin added. That is why we are here. The crowd of students was getting bigger. Everyone wanted to see the impossible beings from the forbidden world. The supervisor made a decision. I think, he said, we need to call an emergency meeting with the dean. This changes everything we thought we knew about Deathworlds. As the supervisor walked away to make his calls, Hyun-woo, Da-eun, and Ki-jun looked at each other. Everything they had learned in Professor Velthara's class suddenly seemed wrong. Maybe the monsters of Earth were not monsters at all. The next morning, Professor Velthara sat in her office feeling very confused. Her crystal-like skin was changing colors from blue to purple, which happened when she was nervous. Across from her desk sat the three beings from Earth. They looked so normal, so friendly. Nothing like the monsters she had been teaching about for years. Her research assistant, Sung-min, sat nearby with his note-taking device. He was a young alien with soft fur and big eyes. His hands shook a little as he tried to write down everything the humans said. Let me make sure I understand this correctly, Professor Velthara said slowly. You are telling me that humans not only live on Earth, but you actually enjoy living there? Minho nodded with enthusiasm. Oh yes, Earth is wonderful. We have beautiful mountains and forests. The oceans are full of amazing life. And the animals you showed in your class, they are some of our favorites. Favorites? Sungmin squeaked. His fur was standing up with fear. But they are deadly predators. So Young smiled gently. They can be dangerous if you do not respect them. But they are also incredible creatures. Sharks, for example, have been swimming in our oceans for over 400 million years. They are living history. Professor Velthara felt dizzy. But surely you stay far away from these creatures. You must live in protected cities? Some humans do live in cities, Jamin said, but others choose to live close to nature. I grew up near the ocean. I learned to swim before I could walk properly. You swam in the ocean? With sharks? Professor Velthara whispered. Well, not exactly with them, Jamin laughed. But yes, I swam in the same water. I even became a marine biologist. I spent years studying ocean life up close. Sungmin dropped his note-taking device. You chose to study the ocean monsters? On purpose? They are not monsters, Jamin said patiently. They are animals trying to survive just like us. Sharks are actually very careful hunters. They do not attack unless they are confused or threatened. Most shark attacks happen because the shark thinks a human is a seal. Professor Velthara activated her holographic display. It showed the huge great white shark from yesterday's lesson. This creature has killed thousands of beings. Actually, So Young said, sharks kill fewer than 10 humans per year on average. Humans are much more dangerous to sharks than sharks are to humans. We have accidentally reduced their numbers by fishing too much. The professor stared at the hologram. You are saying humans are more dangerous than sharks? In some ways, yes, Minho admitted, but not because we are violent, because we are very good at changing our environment. Sometimes we change things without thinking about how it affects other creatures. What about the polar bears? Sungmin asked, his voice very small. The giant bears with the terrible claws? Jamin's eyes lit up. Polar bears are amazing. They are perfectly adapted to live in the Arctic. Did you know they can smell a seal through 3 feet of ice? And their fur is not actually white. Each hair is clear and hollow, which helps them stay warm. But they attack humans, Professor Velthara protested. Very rarely, So Young said. Polar bears usually avoid humans. They only attack if they are very hungry or if they think their babies are in danger. Most humans who work in polar bear areas carry special flares to scare them away safely. Work in polar bear areas, Sungmin repeated. Humans work where the giant killer bears live? Of course, Minho said. Scientists study the ice and weather. Some people hunt for fish. Others take pictures of the bears for research. My aunt is a photographer who specializes in Arctic wildlife. Professor Velthara felt like her world was turning upside down. Your aunt takes pictures of polar bears? She has some amazing photos, Minho said proudly. Bears playing with their cubs, swimming in the cold water, even sleeping. They are beautiful animals. The professor activated another hologram. This time it showed the huge crocodile with its massive jaws. Surely no human would go near these creatures. Jaemin and So Young looked at each other and started laughing. What is funny? Sungmin asked nervously. My hometown has a festival every year where people wrestle crocodiles. Jaemin said, it is completely safe. The crocodiles' mouths are held shut and they are not hurt. It is just for fun. Professor Velthara's skin turned bright purple. You wrestle the giant death lizards? For fun? Well, they are not death lizards. So Young said. They are reptiles, and the wrestling is more like a show. Humans have been living with crocodiles for thousands of years. We learned how to be safe around them. What about poisonous snakes? Sungmin asked desperately. Surely even humans fear the venomous serpents? Minho thought about this. Some people are afraid of snakes, that is true, but others work with them every day. My uncle was a herpetologist, a snake scientist. He milked venom from dangerous snakes to make medicine. Medicine? Professor Velthara asked weakly. Snake venom can be turned into antidote to help people who get bitten, So Young explained. It can also be used to make medicines for other problems. My uncle probably saved hundreds of lives by working with cobras and vipers. He worked with cobras? Sungmin's voice was barely a whisper. Every day for 30 years, Minho said. He taught me to respect snakes but not fear them. Most snakes just want to be left alone. They only bite when they feel trapped. Professor Velthara slumped in her chair. Everything she had taught about Earth was wrong. But your planet tries to kill you. The weather, the earthquakes, the storms. Earth can be challenging, Jaemin agreed. We have hurricanes and tornadoes and volcanoes, but we learn to predict them and prepare for them, and even dangerous weather can be beautiful. Beautiful? Sungmin squeaked. Have you ever seen lightning? So Young asked. It is electricity jumping between clouds and the ground. It can be dangerous, but it is also one of the most amazing things in nature. Some humans actually chase storms to study them, Minho added. They drive special vehicles into hurricanes and tornadoes to collect data. Professor Velthara was quiet for a long time. Finally, she asked, why do humans do these dangerous things? Why not live safely and avoid all risks? The three humans looked at each other thoughtfully. I think, Minho said slowly, it is because we learned that hiding from danger does not make us safe. Understanding danger makes us safe. When you know how sharks behave, you can swim with them safely, Jaemin added. When you understand storm patterns, you can predict them and protect people. And when you respect the power of nature instead of fearing it, So Young continued, you can find ways to live with it peacefully. Sungmin was writing very fast now, trying to capture every word. So humans survived your death world by learning about it? We survived by becoming part of it, Minho said. Earth is not trying to kill us. Earth just is what it is. We learned to be what we needed to be to live there. Professor Velthara looked at her holographic display one more time. The images of sharks and bears and crocodiles looked different now. Not like monsters, but like animals. Just animals living their lives. I think, she said quietly, I need to rewrite my entire curriculum. Outside her office window, word was spreading through the university. Students from every world were gathering to hear about the impossible beings from the forbidden planet. Some were still afraid, but more and more were becoming curious. What other things had they been wrong about? What other worlds had they misunderstood? And most importantly, what could they learn from the people who had turned the galaxy's most feared world into their home? 3 days had passed since the humans arrived at the university. Word had spread to every corner of the campus and beyond. Ships were arriving from other worlds carrying scientists, reporters, and curious officials. Everyone wanted to see the impossible beings from the forbidden Deathworld. Professor Velthera stood in the university's largest laboratory, feeling more nervous than she had ever felt in her life. The room was packed with hundreds of beings from across the galaxy. Some sat in the floating chairs designed for species without legs. Others hung from the ceiling on special perches. A few were so large they had to watch through the windows. From outside, security guards stood at every entrance. Medical teams waited nearby with emergency equipment. The university's dean had insisted on every possible safety measure before allowing the demonstration to proceed. Today we will conduct scientific tests to understand how humans survived on their death world, Professor Velthera announced. Her voice was amplified so everyone could hear. These tests are designed to be safe, but we must be prepared for unexpected results. In the front row, Hyunwoo, Da-Yoon, and Ki-jun had the best seats in the laboratory. They had become friends with the humans over the past few days, spending hours asking questions and learning about Earth. But they were still amazed by everything they heard. The three humans, Min-ho, So-young, and Jae-min, stood calmly in the center of the lab. They seemed completely relaxed even though hundreds of eyes were watching their every move. The first test will examine human responses to predator imagery, Professor Velthera explained. We will show holographic representations of Earth's most dangerous creatures. She activated the holographic projectors. The lab filled with three-dimensional images of sharks, bears, crocodiles, and venomous snakes. The holograms were so real they seemed alive. Most of the audience moved back in their seats or made frightened noises, but the humans stepped forward, with interest. "Oh wow, that is a beautiful great white," Minho said, walking closer to the shark hologram. "Look at the perfect streamlining of its body. Evolution spent millions of years perfecting that design. And check out that grizzly bear," Jae-min added, approaching the massive bear image. "You can see the muscle definition in its shoulders. That bear is probably from Alaska, judging by its size and fur density." So-young examined the crocodile hologram closely. This appears to be a saltwater crocodile. See how the head is wider than a Nile crocodile? And those are definitely the teeth of an apex predator. Dr. Hae-jin, a psychology professor with tentacles instead of arms, was taking notes frantically. "Remarkable," she whispered to her colleague. "They show no fear response at all. If anything, they seem appreciative." "Their stress hormones are actually decreasing," reported Dr. Chan-woo, who was monitoring the humans with medical scanners. "Most species show extreme panic when exposed to these images. The humans are becoming more relaxed." Professor Velthera moved to the second test. "We will now examine human pain tolerance," she announced. "This device simulates various forms of physical discomfort that would be encountered on a hostile world." She showed them a machine with sensors that could create different types of pressure, heat, and cold. Most alien volunteers could only tolerate the lowest settings before withdrawing in pain. Min-ho placed his hand on the sensor first. The machine began applying pressure that would make most species scream. Min-ho barely reacted. "Interesting," he said thoughtfully. "This feels similar to rock climbing when you have to grip small holds for a long time. Good training exercise." So-young tried the temperature test. The machine applied heat that should have burned most skin types, then switched to cold that should have caused frostbite. She showed no signs of distress. "The heat reminds me of working in the desert," she commented, "and the cold is like winter camping in the mountains. Actually quite pleasant compared to some places on Earth." Jae-min tested the machine's most extreme settings, combinations of pressure, heat, and cold that no other species had been able to tolerate. He stood calmly through the entire sequence. "This is roughly what it feels like to work underwater at depth," he said when the test finished. "The pressure changes, the cold water, the weight of the diving equipment. You learn to work through the discomfort." Da-yoon was watching through her empathic abilities. She could sense what the humans were feeling. "They do feel the pain," she told her friends quietly. "But they process it differently. like they are using it as information instead of a warning to run away. The third test was the most dramatic. Professor Velthera activated an environmental chamber that could simulate Earth's extreme weather conditions. The temperature dropped rapidly to levels that would kill most life forms. Wind howled at speeds that could knock down buildings. Simulated lightning flashed overhead. The audience pressed against the safety barriers, watching in amazement as the humans simply adjusted their clothing and continued talking to each other normally. "This is nice," Minho said, raising his voice slightly over the artificial storm. "Reminds me of winter in Canada, though the lightning is a bit much for this time of year." "I have been in worse," Jamian added. "Try spending a week in Antarctica during a blizzard. Now that is challenging weather." So Young looked up at the lightning effects. "Beautiful electrical display, though. Lightning is one of nature's most amazing phenomena." Ki-jun was staring at his instruments in disbelief. "Their body temperature is increasing," he told his friends. "They are generating internal heat to compensate for the cold environment. That should be impossible." Dr. Min-jun, the university's leading biologist, was examining readings that seemed to break every law of evolution he knew. "Their cellular structure is incredibly robust," he announced to the crowd. "They can function in environments that would shut down most biological systems." But it was not just their physical abilities that amazed the watchers. Throughout every test, the humans remained kind and patient. They answered questions, made jokes to ease tension, and showed concern when they thought their demonstrations might be frightening people. "Are you sure this is not hurting you?" Professor Velthera asked during the temperature test. "We appreciate your concern," So Young replied warmly. "But humans have lived through ice ages and heat waves for thousands of years. Our bodies adapted to handle extreme conditions." "What about the psychological effects?" asked Dr. Heijin. "Surely constant exposure to danger must make humans aggressive or paranoid." Minho thought about this seriously. "Some humans do become aggressive when they feel threatened, but most of us learned that cooperation works better than fighting. On a dangerous world, you need friends to survive." "Working together is how humans built civilization," Jamian added. "We could not survive Earth alone. We survived by helping each other." As the demonstrations continued, the mood in the laboratory began to change. The initial fear was being replaced by wonder and curiosity. Students from different worlds started asking questions about Earth's culture, art, and science. "What do humans do for fun?" asked a student with blue scales and gills. "We make music and art," So Young replied. "We tell stories, we play games, we explore new places. Just like people everywhere, I think." "Do you have families?" asked another student. "Of course," Minho said with a smile. "I have parents and a sister back on Earth. Jamin has 3 children. So Young is married to another scientist." The questions kept coming. What did humans eat? How did they build their cities? What were their schools like? Did they have jokes and stories and songs? With every answer, the humans seemed less like monsters and more like people. Different people from a challenging world, but still people with hopes and dreams and families. Professor Velthara looked at all her test results. Every measurement confirmed the same thing. Humans were incredibly tough and adaptable, but they were also intelligent, social, and peaceful. "I believe," she announced to the crowd, "we need to completely reconsider our understanding of Deathworlds and the life they produce." In the audience, representatives from dozens of worlds were taking notes and making plans. If humans could survive Earth and still develop art, science, and civilization, what did that mean for the galaxy's understanding of evolution and survival? More importantly, what could they learn from these remarkable beings who had turned the universe's most feared world into their home? 1 week had passed since the humans first walked into Professor Velthera's classroom. Now, the largest assembly hall on the entire planet was packed beyond its limits. Ships from across the galaxy had arrived carrying diplomats, scientists, reporters, and curious citizens. Some beings had traveled for days just to see the impossible people from the forbidden world. The Great Hall could hold 10,000 people, but today it seemed like twice that many had somehow squeezed inside. Floating platforms held those who could not sit in regular chairs. Special environmental bubbles protected species that breathed different gases. The walls were lined with translation devices speaking in hundreds of languages. Professor Velthera stood at the main podium, but she was not the same confident teacher who had lectured about Deathworld monsters just 1 week ago. Her crystal skin flickered between colors as she looked out at the massive crowd. Everything she thought she knew about the universe had changed. In the front row sat the 3 humans who had started this revolution in thinking. Minho, So-Young, and Jaemin looked calm and comfortable, even though millions of beings across the galaxy were watching this broadcast. Next to them sat their new friends, Hyunwoo, Da-Eun, Ki-jun, and dozens of other students who had spent the week learning about Earth. Fellow beings of the galaxy, Professor Velthara began. 1 week ago I taught a class about the monsters of Deathworlds. Today I must tell you that almost everything in that lesson was wrong. A murmur ran through the crowd. Some beings looked confused, others excited, and a few still seemed frightened. Earth is indeed a challenging world, the professor continued. It has dangerous weather, powerful predators, and harsh environments. But it is not a world of monsters. It is a world that created something far more remarkable than monsters. It created humans. She activated the holographic display, but instead of showing sharks and bears, it showed human cities with beautiful buildings reaching toward the sky. It showed art galleries filled with paintings and sculptures. It showed concerts where thousands of people listened to music together. Humans did not survive their challenging world by becoming savage, Professor Velthara explained. They survived by becoming adaptable. They learned to work together. They developed science and art and music. They created civilization not despite their dangerous world, but because of it. In the audience, Chancellor Jun Seo of the Galactic University stood up. He was an old and respected leader whose opinion carried weight throughout the galaxy. Professor Velthara, he said formally, are you saying that Earth should no longer be classified as a forbidden world? Before the professor could answer, Minho stood up and walked to the podium. The crowd became completely silent. This was the first time most of them had seen a human speak publicly. Honorable Chancellor, Minho said with a respectful bow, Earth would like to formally request membership in the Galactic Federation. The hall erupted in surprised voices. Some beings seemed excited by this idea, others worried, and many appeared simply shocked. Minho waited patiently for the noise to die down, then continued. We know our world has a frightening reputation, but we hope this week has shown you that humans are not the monsters you feared. We are explorers and scientists and artists, just like many of you. He gestured to his companions. So-Young is a biochemist who studies how to make medicines from plants. Jaemin is a teacher who helps children learn about ocean life. I am an engineer who designs safer spaceships. We are not warriors or conquerors. We are people who want to learn and share knowledge with our galactic neighbors. So-Young joined him at the podium. We have brought gifts from our world, she said, activating a new holographic display. Human music, art, literature, and scientific discoveries. But more than that, we offer friendship. The display showed human musicians playing instruments that created beautiful sounds. It showed paintings that captured light and color in amazing ways. It showed books filled with stories of adventure and love and hope. This is what Earth really creates. So-Young continued. Not monsters, but beauty. Not violence, but cooperation. Not fear, but wonder. Jaemin stepped forward to speak next. We understand your concerns about humans, he said honestly. Yes, we are tough. Yes, we can survive in harsh conditions. But our greatest strength is not our ability to fight or endure pain. Our greatest strength is our ability to find hope and create beauty even in the darkest places. He looked out at the crowd with gentle eyes. Earth taught us that life is precious because it is fragile. Every day we live with the knowledge that storms can destroy our cities, that earthquakes can split the ground, that wild animals can be dangerous if not respected. This did not make us cruel. It made us appreciate every moment of peace, every act of kindness, every chance to create something beautiful. Dr. He-jin, the psychology professor, stood up to ask a question. But surely your harsh world made some humans violent or aggressive? Minho nodded seriously. Some humans do choose violence, he admitted, just like some members of every species. But most humans learned long ago that violence creates more problems than it solves. On a world where nature can be dangerous, we cannot afford to fight each other. We survive by working together. What about your technology? Asked Dr. Chan Wu. Did you develop weapons to fight your world's predators? We developed tools, So Young replied. Some of those tools can be used as weapons, but mostly we use them to build things, to grow food, to heal the sick, to explore space, to create art. A student from the Harmony Worlds raised her hand. What do you want from the galaxy? Why did you come here? The three humans looked at each other and smiled. We want to learn, Jaemin said simply. For 300 years, humans have been alone in space. We always wondered if there were other thinking beings among the stars. When we detected your signals, we were so excited we could barely sleep. We want to share knowledge, So Young added. We want to learn about your cultures, your art, your science, and we want to share what we have learned about survival, adaptation, and cooperation. Most of all, Minho concluded, we want friendship. Earth may have taught us to be tough, but it also taught us that we are stronger together than alone. Chancellor, Junseo stood again. The question before us is whether to accept Earth as a member of the Galactic Federation. This is not a decision to make lightly. We understand, Minho replied. We are willing to start slowly, perhaps with student exchanges, like we have done here, or scientific cooperation. We do not expect immediate trust. We hope to earn it. Over time. Professor Velthera returned to the podium. In 1 week, she said, these humans have revolutionized our understanding of evolution, survival, and civilization. They have shown us that harsh worlds do not necessarily create harsh people. They can also create people who are incredibly strong yet incredibly kind. She looked directly at the three humans. You have taught us that the most dangerous thing about Deathworlds is not the monsters they might create. It is how they force us to challenge our assumptions about what is possible. The vote was not held that day. It would take weeks of discussion and debate among the Federation's members. But the process had begun. As the formal assembly ended, smaller groups formed throughout the hall. Students from different worlds surrounded the humans, asking questions about Earth's music, food, sports, and customs. Scientists wanted to know about human medicine and technology. Artists were curious about human creativity and storytelling. Hyun Woo, Taeyun, and Kijun stayed close to their new friends. The week had changed them too. They were no longer the sheltered students who had been terrified by images of Earth's animals. They had learned that the universe was much more complex and wonderful than they had imagined. I have been thinking, Hyunwoo said as they walked through the crowd. Maybe other worlds we think are dangerous are actually just misunderstood. And maybe, Taeyun added, the most important thing about any species is not how tough they are, but how kind they choose to be. Kijun was already making plans. I want to study human engineering, he announced. I want to learn how to build things that can survive anything. Minho smiled at the young alien. We would be honored to teach you, he said. And we hope you will teach us too. That is what friends do. As the humans prepared to return to their temporary quarters, news reports were already spreading across the galaxy. The story of the Deathworld humans was being told on 1,000 worlds, in 100 languages to billions of beings. Some were still afraid, some were skeptical, but many were beginning to wonder, if humans could turn the galaxy's most feared world into a home, what else was possible? And in a small classroom where it all began, Professor Velthera was already rewriting her textbooks. The lesson about Deathworld monsters was being replaced with a new chapter, how challenging worlds create remarkable people. The humans had walked into her classroom as strangers from a forbidden world, but they were leaving as friends who had changed the galaxy's understanding of what it meant to be alive, to be intelligent, and to be strong enough to choose kindness. Even when life is difficult, the universe, it turned out, was far more wonderful than anyone had dared to hope.